You ever wake up in a strange room and feel like you're not alone? Imagine that feeling turning real. A shadow in the corner, knocks from nowhere, and a face pressed against the window, watching you in the dead of night. This isn't just another scary story. This happened, and the person who lived through it, he's never slept the same since. The check-in. In December 2017, Karan and his friends decided to take a weekend trip to Rishikesh, a serene town nestled along the Ganges River, famous for rafting and yoga retreats. They didn't plan much, just a quick getaway to escape city life. They booked rooms at a small guest house near the river, opting for cheap accommodation since it was a short stay. The guest house wasn't luxurious, but it was clean and had the basics: comfortable beds, a working shower, and a quiet courtyard. Karan and his two friends, Rohit and Akhil, were given 2 rooms. Karan would stay alone in room 105, while Rohit and Akhil took the room right next door. The guest house manager handed them the keys, but gave Karan an odd look when he saw the number on his key. Room 105? The manager murmured under his breath, hesitating for a moment. He looked as though he wanted to say something, but quickly plastered on a polite smile. "If you need anything, just call me." At the time, Karan didn't think much of it, but in hindsight, he realized the man's hesitation had been a warning. The first night, that night, the friends went out to explore the town. They returned to the guest house around 10 p.m., exhausted from rafting and trekking. After chatting for a while, they retired to their rooms. Room 105 was nothing special. A small bed, a wooden cupboard, a single window with pale curtains, and an old ceiling fan that made a faint ticking noise. Karan threw his bag on the bed, took a quick shower, and slipped under the blanket, ready to crash for the night. But as soon as he switched off the lights, he felt off. The room, which had been normal a few moments ago, now felt uncomfortably heavy. It wasn't just silence, it was a kind of oppressive stillness, as if the air itself had thickened. Karan lay in bed, eyes closed, trying to sleep. But that's when it started. The faint sound of someone knocking. It was soft at first, like someone tapping gently on the wooden cupboard. Karan froze, his heart pounding. He strained his ears, hoping it was just his imagination. But the knocking came again, tap tap tap, rhythmic and deliberate. He flicked on the bedside lamp and scanned the room. There was no one. The cupboard door was shut, the window locked, and the door to the hallway bolted from inside. He told himself it was just the old wood creaking and went back to bed, but deep down, he knew something wasn't right. The second night, a dark presence. The next day, Karan mentioned the strange knocking to Rohit and Akhil over breakfast. They teased him, saying he was just tired or spooked by the unfamiliar place. Laughing it off, they spent the day exploring again, trying to enjoy their vacation. But when Karan returned to room 105 that night, the sense of unease returned too. Only this time, it was stronger. As he lay in bed, the knocking started again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the cupboard, it was coming from the ceiling. Tap, tap, tap. Karan's breath hitched. His eyes darted to the ceiling, where the old fan spun lazily. He tried to convince himself that it was just the fan's rhythm, but the sound didn't match the fan's movement. And then, something worse happened. The fan stopped spinning, as if someone had turned it off. The room plunged into eerie silence, and then a new sound began, a faint, raspy breathing. It was soft, deliberate, and terrifyingly close, as though someone was lying next to him, exhaling slowly. Karan bolted upright, sweat beading on his forehead. He switched on the light and scanned the room, but there was no one there. Then he saw it. The blanket on the other side of the bed was pressed down, as if someone had been lying there just moments ago. The third night, face in the window. By now, Karan was convinced that something unnatural was happening. He told Rohit and Akhil everything, but they laughed it off again, thinking he was just tired or imagining things. Karan didn't care. He decided to leave the room first thing in the morning. That night, he locked the door and tried to sleep with the light on. But around 2:30 a.m., something stirred him awake. It wasn't the knocking this time. It was a strange sensation, like someone was watching him. He looked toward the window, and there, just behind the pale curtains, he saw it. A face. It was pressed against the glass from the outside, pale and expressionless. The eyes were wide, unblinking, and filled with something empty. The mouth was slightly open, as though frozen mid-breath. Karan's heart stopped. His room was on the first floor, but the outside of the window led to a narrow alley with a tall fence. There was no way someone could be standing there. And yet, the face stared in at him, unmoving. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, he threw the blanket over his head and stayed like that, trembling, until morning. As soon as the sun rose, Karan packed his bags and left room 105 without a second glance. At the reception desk, the manager gave him a knowing look but didn't say anything. Before leaving, Karan mustered the courage to ask, "What's wrong with that room?" The manager sighed. Years ago, a guest stayed in room 105, a young man traveling alone. He was found dead in the room, lying in bed as if he had just fallen asleep. No signs of struggle, no cause of death. Since then, every guest who stays there complains of strange things. Karan didn't respond. He just nodded, grabbed his bag, and left the guest house, vowing never to return. Even now, Karan can't sleep without a light on. Whenever he closes his eyes, he sees that face, pale, empty, and pressed against the glass, waiting to be let in. To this day, he doesn't know what he encountered in room 105, but he knows one thing for certain. Some doors once opened can never truly be closed. Sometimes it's not the places we visit that are haunted, it's what follows us back. If you ever find yourself in an unfamiliar room and hear a knock in the night, think twice before you answer, because it might not be someone you want to meet.